Hey, everybody. Welcome to Ultimate Insider, Bear Insiders podcast. I am Mike Pawlawski, Hall of Fame quarterback and radio color analyst for the Golden Bears. We got a big game win. How about that? 126th iteration of the game, and sadly, the final time this game is played between two Pac-12 or Pac opponents, since it's gone all the way back to the six-pack. But you get the win, and that's huge for alums, for Bay Area football fans, for any Cal fans anywhere. Getting a win in the big game is always a great occasion. So congratulations to the Golden Bears for that win. Offensively, it was a little bit sloppy. And defensively, it could have been a little bit better. We could have gotten a couple more sacks, though we did move Daniels around the pocket a little bit. But again, a win is a win is a win. So very nice win for the Golden Bears. We'll break it down position by position. Coming up, I'll talk to head coach Justin Wilcox and get his take on the big game. I believe that he is now 4-3 in big games. I could be wrong about that, but he's right there. He's over 500 in terms of big game wins. So congratulations to him and the coaching staff as well. I know this time of the year, you're in the dog days. The days get short and it's long, and you've been working your butt off all year long. You got injuries. There's all kinds of stuff going on. So to get a win in a game like that, it picks you up, and it's a rivalry game, so it's huge. And then on top of that, the Bears have been fighting for bowl contention, to bowl eligibility, right? So they have to get to 6 wins for bowl eligibility, and they give themselves a chance to get that 6th win next week versus UCLA. So it was a great win overall to get that one the way they did on the farm. Very nice. Let's start off with quarterback, Fernando Mendoza. I thought he played a very good game for a freshman in his first big game. He was a little bit sloppy at times, but the emotion of the game will do that to a young player. And Fernando is a very good quarterback. He's going to be a really, really good quarterback by the time he's done playing. But he's also, emotional. He gets pumped up in these games, and these rivalry games can get the juices flowing. Whether you want them to or not, sometimes your nervous system just takes over. So I think he had a little bit of that. Plus, it was wet weather, right? It was rain off and on during the game. They're playing on grass. There's a number of reasons it could be sloppy. But Fernando passed for 294 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did have one interception that I will refer to as a bonehead interception. It's a quarterback throwing late to a receiver downfield and didn't even recognize a safety underneath. So I'm sure if he were here, he would tell you that was a huge mistake. And so I've thrown those. I've thrown bonehead. Sometimes you get jersey blind out there where you don't even see the other jersey because you're kind of dialed into your guy. And potentially that's what happened there. It was definitely late for sure to throw that over route. So a mistake that he will learn from as a freshman, but in his first big game, he gets a win. He was 67% passing, so reasonably efficient as a quarterback there as well, and got freshman of the week as a quarterback. So congratulations to him, his first Pac-12 honor, and awesome for him to get it in the big game for that big win. His top receiver in this game was Tron Grizel. We've been talking about Tron from day one during camp. Coach Wilcox told us how he had worked himself into position to break that starting lineup. A walk-on player who has put in the effort, who has learned the system, who has gotten better and better and better as the year progresses. And he had a breakout game in the big game, 130-plus yards receiving, 2 touchdowns, including, by the way, a fantastic back shoulder catch. Not only that, it was a great back shoulder throw. And I forgot to mention that with Fernando. He throws that back shoulder ball so well. But this one to Grizel in the end zone was really nice at Stanford. So good pitch and catch, great connection. Obviously, they have a sense for each other. He's getting that with Grizel. He's got it with Endries, who also had a good game. And Endries, by the way, up for freshman All-American at that tight end spot too, so pretty cool there. Offensive line did a nice job in this game as well. Jay Knott had a record in this game where he got 166 yards total rushing, but he passed Shane Vereen on the all-time rushing list, which is huge because Shane Vereen was a baller at that running back position, went on to play, umpteen years in the NFL as well. So a really, really good football player. And Jaden Ott eclipsed his mark in this game. Obviously, he was over 1,000 coming into this game, so now he just adds to that list, and a guy who can potentially be on All-American lists himself, right? So he's competing at that national level in terms of rushing yards. And a huge part of that, he's very talented. His speed is a big piece of that, but the offensive line has done a great job in the running game this year. I have said it, and this is no knock to any of those dudes. We really have 5 guards out there playing across on the offensive line. There's no true tackles if you'd look at at the tackle position. And you've had some dudes like Barrett Miller fill in admirably, TJ Sessions as well. But I think, and from talking to scouts and from talking to other guys who have played the position, that those guys, if they were to project out, would probably project out as guards. But they're doing a nice job in the run game here at Cal. Guards play well in the run game. They can move. They're athletic. They're strong, right? They have all those things going for them. And so those guys doing an excellent job. I say 5 guards. Obviously, we have a center too, and a lot of those guys could play center as well. But doing an excellent job in the run game. And so hats off to those dudes. Again, no knock saying they're not a tackle. A tackle is a specialist position. Those dudes, I've seen tackles who were phenomenal athletes, and I've seen tackles who weren't athletic at all but could play the position because they had incredible technique. But if you were to try to put them at guard, they'd be useless. And so the fact that those guys can go from guard to and play that tackle spot is also a feather in their cap because it makes them versatile. They can become swing guys on the next level if they go on. So, but doing a good job running the ball, all said and done. Now that I've talked myself in circles, Mike Blesh has coached the hell out of that O-line. You remember what it was like, the last couple of years. And so he has done a heck of a job getting those guys motivated, getting the right attitude, getting the execution up, and creating an environment in which the run game really matters. So hats off to the big boys. I always love it when the big boys do well, and I can congratulate them. So good for them. And I think, Jake Spavital as well, calling that offense and finding a way to get the box numbers right. I keep talking about this in that RPO game, in the run game. Quarterback always has a choice that if they have too many people in the box, if the numbers aren't right for us, I can pull that ball and get it to the outside. And so that helps you be efficient in the run game because it keeps that box at the right number so you can get a hat for a hat, or at least the guys that you don't have a hat for, you have a quarterback for to hold them on the backside, or some kind of read that they have to stay home for. So an excellent job running the football again this week. Helped open up that pass. And the offense, again, not super clean, but efficient enough to win that game. So good on them. Defense, a nice job in this game. Moving the quarterback, Daniels, Troy Taylor, we've talked about it, a good offensive mind, a guy who likes to throw different formations and motions and sets at you, 2 quarterback sets sometimes, things that get your eyes in the wrong place and get you thinking wrong. And except for a couple of plays, there weren't a lot of explosives where Cal's defense was out of sorts. So they did a nice job out there in terms of A, gap responsibility, but then B, in terms of coverage as well, because Troy can get you looking the wrong place in the pass game. And even when, the defenders weren't in perfect position in the secondary, the D-line was moving the quarterback around and couldn't get the ball off. So it has to be a full unit, everybody working together. They did a nice job in this game. One consideration and one worry for Cal fans is Cade Luave injured in this game. And so we'll have to see if he returns. I'll ask Coach about that coming up shortly. And then getting it done, holding the team at the end and keeping them under 300 yards of total offense. I think defense last couple games has shown up a lot better. Holding this team, by the way, to under 60 snaps in the game as well, in part getting those 3 and outs. And I think Stanford was less than 30% on third down, which is a tough percentage. And then also creating opportunities to get them behind the chains, stopping the run, creating plays that kept them off schedule. And so it got that offense off the field so they couldn't convert on third down. I think both those things played into the defense having a great day out there versus the Cardinal. So all that said, I think it was a great overall showing. Winning the big game is always huge. Right now I'm going to talk to Coach Wilcox, and we'll get his take on the game. Well, joining me now, head coach Justin Wilcox. Coach, big game win is always a great win. After watching film, tell me what you saw.
Yep, it was. And I'm happy for all the old Blues out there. I know it means a lot to them. So we're glad to hopefully give them a little feel good for a weekend or a week or a month or a year. Basically, we offensively, we ran it well. We hit some big pass plays, timely pass plays, I would say. Special teams played solid, maybe not spectacular, but solid. And defensively, I think very solid as well. Minimal busts. I thought we covered probably better than we've covered all year, maybe other than the Auburn game. And we affected the quarterback. And that, I think when you add all that up, would put us in a position to win. Now, I think we could have, if we shot ourselves in the foot on offense a few too many times. It was a bit sloppy at times. Special teams would put the ball on the ground twice. The punter had to save us on a poor snap, and then Jeremiah bobbled the punt return. And then defensively, if we would have sacked the quarterback, and the opportunities where we had to sack him, it might have been even a bigger margin of victory. So overall, really pleased, and it's good, but there's still much that we could improve upon and things to coach off of.
Yeah, and you talk about how much it speaks to old Blues. I'll tell you, my senior year we went 10-2, and then we lost to Stanford in the big game, and we got letters demanding Coach Snyder's head because of that loss. So big game is important. So it's a huge win to get that one in. It's one more win as well towards a bowl game. Talk about where the team is emotionally on that right now. One game left, there's nothing else to focus on but this game coming up.
You got it. Empty the tank. We're talking about players, preparation, scheme. There's nothing holding back. There is no next week. And so I thought the energy's been good. Again, coming off a win, it's easier to have great energy on Mondays, but they've been good. And now we have to have a great week of prep because UCLA is a talented squad, a very talented squad. So we're going to need to play well. We'll need to play even better than we did last week. And so the guys understand that, and those things we're talking about in meetings. But there's obviously a lot to play for.
Yeah, and a couple of big events in the big game. Jaden Ott goes for 166, but he surpasses Shane Vereen on the all-time rushing list. I mean, that's pretty impressive. That's a dude right there that he just surpassed. And so talk about what that means for Jaden Ott. And the big difference really for him this year, Mike Blesh, that running game, the big guys up front.
Yeah, that's a great honor, cracking that top 10 and getting in front of Shane, who is a fantastic player. I didn't realize that until after the game in the Pac-12 network. He had mentioned that. And Jaden's done it in a pretty short time. It's not like he's been here all that long. This is his second year. He's well into his second season, obviously, but to do that is impressive, and I still think he's just got so much more left. And I think that game, it was a different style, a different 160 yards than he's had in the past, where he's had some 40, 50, 30-yard runs. This was, grinding it out, 36 carries, basically touching the ball one out of every two plays and being the workhorse. And he's had a few games this year he wasn't able to finish, and I thought this was a step, seeing him basically just keep carrying the ball as long as it took and getting 166 yards and 36 carries and just being that guy that keep handing the ball to. And, he was, without him, it'd been really, really difficult. So it was a great victory and a great, I think, step for him. Mike Blesh and that O-line and the whole group, the offensive staff and all the guys blocking have done a heck of a job improving that run game. So really proud of all of them.
Yeah, obviously, Jaden Ott is a guy who you want to get the ball in his hands early and often, but I would think somewhere between that 25 to 35 is normally kind of his range, right? Get him a couple passes, let him run the ball inside. 36 carries is a lot of carries for a back like Jaden.
Yep, and I think looking back on the game, if we would have connected on some of these plays that we were talking about where we had some mishits, well, you hit some more explosives, and now, he doesn't carry it, 5 more times that drive. And so I'm with you. I think there's probably a sweet spot in there in that, 25 to 30 range, just him touching the ball. But we needed him, and he was up to the challenge, and that's what it took this past weekend. Could we have played cleaner? Yeah. We had a couple kind of mishits, whether it was in the protection or the run or the pre-snap, where we just weren't quite on. And we're going to need to be better this week. And again, I think that would also take some of that load off because we're going to hit some more explosive plays.
Yeah, not putting yourself behind the chains with penalties, with the mistakes. Like, that's one of those cardinal sins. I mentioned it on the air that you just, those are the ones you look at and means you're like, really? We try hard enough to get 4 yards and then we lose 5 because we lose concentration. It makes it tough. A big thing, once again, last week, there was a huge disparity in terms of plays. You guys were on the lower end of the scale. This week, there's a huge disparity in terms of plays. You guys, you just mentioned it, sustaining drives, right? Not hitting the explosives, but able to sustain those drives. I think it was 84 to 59, so an extra 25 plays in this game on offense. Talk about what that meant in terms of defensive performance as well.
Yeah, for the defense not having to go out there and defend 95 to 100 plays is huge. And it goes both ways. So the offense staying on the field, as you mentioned. Now, do we want to hit some more of those explosives? Yes. And that's how I think you're going to score more points, but also sustaining some drives and limiting 3 and outs and turnovers and things like that, where the defense has to go sudden change or get back on the field. And so our defense was doing really pretty dang good job for the most part of getting them off the field, forcing them to punt or forcing field goals. And then our offense, keeping the ball, not turning it over and moving the ball down the field. And when you run 25 more plays than the other team, you're going to have a lot better chance to win.
Yeah, no doubt. The longer you keep it, the more chance you have to stick it in the end zone. So always nice. Once again, Fernando Mendoza was efficient enough, right? 67%. He had the one bonehead interception, which I'm sure he would tell you. He just didn't see the guy and tried to throw it up late. And that's a no-no for quarterbacks. But almost 300 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. He had an efficient enough game with some big shots in there.
Yeah, he did. After the game, looking at the stat line, I was, Fernando expects so much from himself, and now we've become to expect a lot from him. He's a freshman, he's a freshman quarterback, and he's going to make some mistakes. And I'm really proud of him for continuing to battle, because he does. He came back from the interception. It was not a great play by him, and he'd be the first to tell you. But boy, the back shoulder touchdown to Tron, and then the post over to Tron, they put it right on his chest, and then the slant to Jeremiah, where Jeremiah kind of spun out of it. He made some really good throws. And then there's just, I think he can operate in that 75% range in a game like that, 75 to 8, maybe even 80. Like, he's good enough to do that. And he would tell you the same. So for him to finish with almost 303 touchdowns, he did have the bad pick. And then he, the biggest thing we're not talking about yet is this, coming back from a huge hit and coming back in the game. And he went over, and the doctors, and they did all their tests and all that. And he comes running up to us and say, "I'm good. I'm going." He was not about to let that opportunity slip. So I was really proud of him, and he displayed the toughness we all know he has.
I love that part of his game, right? That toughness. To me, that's the number 2 thing you need in a quarterback. First thing is accuracy. Second thing is toughness. And if you have those 2 things, you can build on everything else. And I'm sure he would feel his game was sloppy, right? You look at the stat line, you're thinking, oh, that's a great game. But when you watch the game, and I'm sure he feels it was a little bit sloppy. I think potentially wet weather, grass surface, probably both played into that. I know as a quarterback, little things like that will change the difference. But think how good he is and he can get better, to your point. His big target this game, Tron Grizzell. And we talked about Tron kind of earning a spot in camp and how much better he's gotten. Talk about where his game has come to at this point in the season.
Like I said, just a great lesson on somebody that's got some ability. Tron's a 6'4"-ish, 6'3.5", 6'4". He can run. He's still got to continue to build his body, and he can catch the ball, and he really cares. I mean, he really, really cares. And so you have enough ability, you work your butt off, you pour yourself into it, and you can make football work for you. And he's done that. So you saw it in fall camp. Even in spring, there was the glimpses, and then you saw it in fall camp. And I think, he's just earned it every step of the way. He walked on here from Park City, Utah, and he's earned it. And really happy for him. I still think that group we can get even more from, in that passing game between the QBs and the receivers and tight ends. So I'm happy for him, and again, going to keep pushing him to improve because he still can.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. It kind of brings me to the mindset question is so many athletes look at ability when they look at it in somebody else and they use that as an excuse. Well, he's, there because he has this great ability. He has great talent. And maybe I don't have that. And they use that as an excuse not to work hard, not to put themselves out there. Talk about what you see in those players that are able to overcome that piece and to just work through it. Because a lot of those guys, if you have some talent, some ability, but you're willing to put in the work, can become great players.
There's no doubt. I think there's a minimum. You have to be above the line in talent. And there's guys that are just above the line. And if those guys who are just above the line invest and care and make decisions based on their football career and their everyday life. So everything they do is, how do I get better at football? If they're above the line on the talent scale, they can make it work. Like, you really can, especially in football, probably more so than any other major sport. And then there are guys who we've all seen who have exceptional talent who might not have the same investment. Maybe they don't care quite as much. Maybe they make decisions. Maybe they like football but don't love football. Maybe they're motivated by external things. And those guys, it's hard for them to sustain success. And we've seen them dime a dozen. And then you have the very talented guys who are highly motivated, who make decisions on football. And then you have like the elite players. And so I think it's a great lesson. And I think Tron does have talent. I mean, again, he's 6'4", he can run, he can catch. He still has to continue to build his body, and there's other things in his game he has to improve upon. But you have to have enough. And then what you do with it and how hard you work at it, that means everything. And so, you're trying to identify that when you're in recruiting, and whether you're recruiting scholarship players or walk-on players. But I think time and time again, we see it, especially in football, where the talent can get mitigated by the desire and the perseverance and the work ethic. Now, there's a level where, really exceptionally talented players, they do have an advantage. There's obviously, and especially if they put in some time and work at it. But unfortunately, there are some guys who are very talented that might not they don't care enough. And I think you and I can probably list a number of them that we've come across in our careers, and that's just doesn't mean they're a bad person. It just means they don't maybe love football the way some other people do.
Yeah, no doubt. And maybe never had to work for it because they were always so much more talented than the guys around them. And I would argue in any football team, college football teams especially, anywhere between 75 to 90% of the team are those guys who have enough talent but work to get to where they are, where, the 10% elite dudes, those guys, they stand out. But you can also watch them, as you pointed out, drop by the wayside. And so I think the majority of guys who make it at that level are enough talent, but working hard guys. Would you agree with that?
I would. I think it probably depends on the rosters. And the number of people who have the elite talent that can, really kind of scrape by with not working very hard, they get kind of weed themselves out. at this level. And so, but there's a range, even within those guys that have enough. Like there's some guys who work pretty hard at it, and can find a role. And then there's some guys that just will not be denied, and they're going to invest all time and energy and everything they have into football. And so I think there's just ranges, and there's kind of this talent and work ethic, toughness, perseverance spectrum that you're always looking at. And those are the two axes that you're trying to judge everybody on. But I would agree with that. There's the majority of people in football are above the line, and then how much talent do they have, and how hard are they willing to work at it?
Yeah, and it's a magic alchemy that you have to put together as a coach, right, to try to get the most out of everybody. I think it's absolutely key. Defensively, you knew going into this big game, Stanford was going to do different stuff. You guys were able to execute limited plays, but execute well enough to keep them under 300 yards in the game. Talk about what you were doing with Troy's offense and where you found the matchups.
A couple things that showed up. Noel Williams followed Io Manor basically the entire game. And we knew Alec as a player is very talented. He's a big body. We knew the quarterback is a challenge because he can run and throw, and he's tough to tackle. We had a hard time tackling him a few times. We wanted to win some one-on-ones up front in the run game and place a little more split safety where the safeties aren't diving into the box, and then change the picture in the pass game. And I thought the defensive staff had a really good plan. I thought the players executed it well. I thought Noel really stepped up, played maybe his best game. Same with Lou Hearns, had 3 pass breakups, I think. We had some negative plays. I mean, first play of the game, Brett Johnson wins a one-on-one on a draw, shrugs the guard and makes the tackle, versus split safety. So they have numbers, but Brett made the play, got off a block and made the tackle. And that's how you play great defense, is winning those one-on-ones. And then, I think, again, a couple times throughout the game, we had a chance to sack him. He breaks out of it. He throws kind of a Hail Mary down the sideline. The guy tiptoes it, makes a great catch. They end up getting a field goal out of that. But, again, I think we could have played better by getting the quarterback on the ground more, but really overall pleased with the execution. And there's one over route that we didn't match up well, and then they beat us on a vertical for the touchdown. But for the most part, everything was matched up, and I thought the guys, there weren't many busts at all.
Yeah, I thought you guys did a really nice job in coverage. And obviously, you hold a team under 300 yards in total offense. That's a pretty good defensive day overall. So that's head coach Justin Wilcox. We will talk about that upcoming UCLA game coming up. Maybe I'll get it out to you in time for Thanksgiving, so you have something extra to chew on besides your turkey. But just a couple other stats that I want to mention. One, offense was converting third downs at a 45% rate. That is a championship rate of conversion on third down. So hats off to the offense and Coach Spav for that. And then Fernando getting knocked out of the game for a short time there, taking another big hit. One of the things he needs to work on in his game is avoiding taking those huge shots. And so, but I just love watching him play. He's a leader. He's got toughness. He's got a lot of ability and a lot of the intangibles. They measure quarterbacks at combines on arm strength and height and weight and 40 speed and blah, 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 yada, yada. But the quarterbacks who end up being great are the guys who have the intangibles on top of that. As we talked about with Coach, there's a certain amount of talent that you have to have, but then the work ethic, the heart, the drive, the passion, all those things. And Fernando has all of those things in spades. So fun to see him having success here. Fun to see this offense picking it up, improving, and finding its rhythm under Coach Bav, Coach Blesh, all the offensive coaches, Coach Toller, and of course, Fernando at the helm. So that's it for big game. Wrapping this one up right now. Awesome to get a win. 126th final Pac-12 big game. We will continue this rivalry moving forward into the ACC, a natural fit for the two West Coast teams. But that's another podcast for another time. For now, I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you have a fantastic Thanksgiving. Enjoy your families. Enjoy your turkey. Enjoy your naps. And we'll come back and we'll see if we can get one more next week against UCLA. But until then, have a great vacation week. I am Mike Pawlawski for Bear Insider and Ultimate Insider Podcast. As always, go Bears.